Hello everybody, welcome to Brave the Wild. My name is Christopher. Today we are doing a review on this. This is the JEO TEC or JEO TEC number 51 tracker style knife. The reason why I said JEO TEC first is because in Spain they say their J is with an H, and this is a knife that is made in Spain. I will show you here. If you can see the number right there, number 51, Spain, and this is the name. Now, I won't go into too many details with the specs here. I'm gonna just put a little picture up so you guys can look at that. But I will say right now, having handled this and used it, it's been a good knife, but not without its issues, not without its problems. And I'll tell you one of the first problems that I had. Because this is a hollow grind, I had a really difficult time sharpening this blade. And so basically what I had to do is I had to just kind of put it on my belt sander, and I just kind of had to redo the edge and make it more pronounced, make it a little bit larger. When I did that, it drastically changed the performance of this blade, because basically when I was chopping with it, well, when I first got it and just kind of sharpened it normally, I felt like I was almost chopping with the other side. It was kind of weird. So as soon as I got that edge more pronounced, it really changed the characteristics of this knife and made it a heck of a lot easier to use. Now, this is a very beefy knife. It's very thick. And the handle, I find the handle to be quite thick too, the handle scales, and I find them to be really slippery. I always wanting to like wet my hands before I'm using this knife, because it just feels like it wants to slide out of my hands. Now, I don't have terribly big hands, so that probably doesn't help, but that's generally how the handle feels to me anyways. Being a tracker blade, you obviously have two different styles of blades here. You've got sort of a straight blade, then you've got sort of the rounded chopping, and you've got, well, actually three. You've got this little corner right here. This isn't very pronounced, so I didn't really find this terribly useful. It might be nice for sort of starting to skin. If you need to, that might be a good useful feature for that. Going into more useful and possibly, yes, less useful features of the knife itself are these right here. Now, when I first saw this knife, I thought this was going to have a saw blade, and I tried it. I tried to do some notching with it, but it's essentially useless. It doesn't really do anything. It's just for looks. I also tried on an angle. It notched it slightly on an angle, but honestly, what the blade would do, it would be a heck of a lot easier than trying to use this. So I did find this to be sort of a useless feature. I do like the thumb ramp here. I like the way it kind of comes down and sweeps up. That was really nice. But this right here, again, not the most useful feature because my thumb doesn't even grab it. So what I found whenever I was trying to do fine work and I'm sort of holding a piece of wood and I'm pushing with the thumb, you kind of push with the thumb at the same time to kind of help yourself out, I found that this just ended up becoming painful. So what I might do if I don't end up selling the blade is I might just take my file and see if I can sort of file these into a saw type thing, because if I can't really use it, if I can't even touch it, then I might as well turn it into something else. So that's the blade. Let's get into the sheath. I'm just going to set this down here. Now, the sheath I thought was going to be really difficult to put on, but it's actually quite easy. As you can see here, you do the buttons up, you lift these, you pull it out. So really it's actually simpler than you may think to put together. And then once you put it on your belt, of course, you hit these snaps again, and then you're good to go. Now, getting into the sheath here, because it is a leather sheath, this is a handmade leather sheath. Now, this is a handmade knife as well. It's obviously not going to have that same positive feel as a Kydex sheath, but it's not bad. It does hold it pretty well. Of course, I wouldn't want to do that hard because it's not really designed that way. That's not how leather sheaths work. But it is a very, very well-made sheath. It's very heavy duty. It's very thick. They do have a nice hole at the bottom if you get any moisture or debris that has to get out. And then the rest of the finish is actually very, very, very good quality. They did a great job on this sheath here. Here's the front. You've got this sort of textured leather sewn onto this leather. Really, really nice. The feature I really love is this bungee cord at the back end of this here that holds the blade from coming out. It's nice because when it starts to get loose, you can tighten the bungee or you can just simply replace it. It's really just one piece that's going throughout the entire thing. So when you go to put this together, then that elasticized strap really makes a difference. Sorry, not the strap itself, it's elasticized, it's the bungee, you know what I mean. So really good job on the sheath. What you don't see and what it does come with is a fire steel, and here is the fire steel mount right here, slides in there, just a friction mount. So you're going to want to wrap the cord of the fire steel around something, maybe tuck it into here, close it up so that you don't lose the fire steel. But overall, the knife sheath is really well made. The knife itself is just, I mean, this is a beautiful blade. And you can see I've used it. The thing I really enjoy about this knife is the finish and how it doesn't hold on to things the way some powder coated finishes can. You know, it'll stay stained. This will come off with soap and water. I know that for a fact. I haven't cleaned it yet, but it'll come off so easily. Yeah, the knife is really well made. The balance on the knife is not bad at all. This is it here. So pretty much where it needs to be. I do feel like this is a lot of knife to handle. So if you're not ready for sort of a slightly overbuild knife, then you know you're gonna have to brace yourself, because this can kind of go off on you. You really got to be careful how you use it. But you can sort of come up here. I would love to see a tracker knife with a finger choil. You know, this is good to have, but I'd really prefer a finger choil like this, and then maybe a longer handle. I think that would be a fantastic design. Who knows, maybe JEO TEC will go ahead and make something like that. But what we're going to do in this review is the same as what we always do. We're going to do some heavy chopping. We are going to do some light chopping, of course. We're going to do some batoning. We are going to do some feather sticks. We're going to try the edge to see how it does with a ferro rod, and see if we can get a fire going just with this. Stay tuned. Alright, as you can see in slow motion there, we got a few chops in already. So we're going to continue on in real time here and see how it does. I'm really finding it every time I swing, wanting it really wants to slip out of the hand. I'm gonna see if I can maybe bare hand make a bit of a difference. No, still wants to slip out. All right. Oh, I'm gonna leave it right there. Well, as a chopper, it's not too bad. It's still pretty sharp. But again, with this handle, it is so smooth. It's so slick. These finger grooves in here don't really make a difference to me. My hand is constantly sliding off. So one of the things I might do is get a lanyard on here for the pinky, or possibly the wrist. I like the pinky lanyard. It feels a bit more solid. And then really, if I end up keeping this, I'm probably gonna just rough file this, because it really needs grip. It needs grip. It's a lot of knife to swing. You know, it's a ton. And sometimes it doesn't want to bite, and sometimes it does. You really have to find that sweet spot. When it catches this right here, it's not too bad. So we'll leave the chopping segment and move on from there. All right, we're back. So I had to chop a baton for myself here. Now we're going to see how this can thin out the handle for me here. See how it does. Just a little bit more fine chopping. All right, that's not too bad. I find that this blade wants to sort of ricochet off the wood very, very easily. There's something about it, it just wants to bounce off. So I never recommend holding here and doing this kind of chop, because if that bounces off with this weight, you're in big trouble. So my recommendation, if you're getting this knife here, is just to use it and pay it a lot of respect, because this thing can really damage you really badly. And again, just very, very slippery handle. It just does not want to stay put. So I definitely would be making some changes to the handle scales. Okay, now let's see here. See, right away, I wanted to put my finger here. I'm so used to the MSK1 where I've got that nice big finger choil. I really wanted to make use of that, but I can't. So my fingers are far behind, but my thumb is far ahead. And I notice the angle that it puts my hand, it really creates a lot of hand fatigue. So let's see what we can do here. We're just gonna go like this. Now, the really nice thing about this blade, I will say, in its design is, and especially if this were smoother, but if you're wearing gloves, you can almost use this as a bit of a draw. I would sort of pry away myself. I wouldn't necessarily draw with it. But I mean, as you can see right here, I'm just pushing the bottom of my hand right here. I've got a good firm grip on the handle. There's lots of knife to hold on to here without feeling like I'm gonna touch the edge. So this is kind of nice, but we're gonna just go freehand now and see what it does. There we go. So I'm not really trying to make feather sticks so much as I'm just trying to round the edges of this handle here, so I've got something I can hold on to a little bit better. So it's doing a good job. There we go. Now I double hand, really dig in, really deal with those edges, and I'm just pushing it against my chest here. Yeah, that's pretty good. Now if I were carving it and I was sort of doing an alternative here where I'm just sort of drawing it like this, let's see how it does. Yeah, it's not bad. My thumb kind of pushes behind it rather than stays right here, but it's pretty good. There we go. We've got sort of I think I went a bit too thin on the handle, but regardless, we've got a baton ready to go. I hope it's going to last, and let's do some batoning next. So before I actually do any batoning, I need a piece of wood to baton. So what we're going to do here is try a little bit of an alternative. This is tricky because I can't really get this to balance, but we'll do what we can here. And I'm going to try to drive in the blade with the baton as my alternative and safer method of chopping this piece of wood. Pry that off there. So certainly an easier way to get into a piece of wood if you need to. But it can also be a lot more difficult on the hands. Alright, so we're going to let this go around like this. Maybe I'll support it on this piece of wood here. Nope, that's not working. Okay, well that's alright. We'll see what I can do with this. Oh yeah, you know, of course, because this is such a tremendously tough blade, I don't have any hesitation just burying this thing in the wood. That's not an issue. You know, even if it was stuck and I had to pry it out with everything I had, I'm sure this blade will be fine. There we go. Pieces are coming off here. So let's see if we can just break this off here in baton. Okay. Well, thank God that's done. Okay. Now let's see how this thing batons. I'm expecting good things here because it is a large knife. Now I'm gonna not set it on the chopping part. I'm gonna set it on the straight edge here and see how it does. Keep in mind this is aspen. It's pretty hard wood. Yeah. Okay. So it's not. I don't get the impression from this blade that it really wants to split things. I've used other smaller knives that are much better at just you hit them and like 3 hits in they split the wood right open. This one, I feel like you just have to keep driving it and driving it and driving it. Again, these little notches at the top, they really just get messy. They just hold wood, they hold dirt, all sorts of things. So if that can't be converted into a saw blade, then I don't know. I don't know what to say. All right, let's try the further end of the tip here. The chopping section. See if that's any better. Alright, so the chopping section is certainly a little bit better. Probably because maybe it's thicker, it's got more meat here. I'm not exactly sure why. Let's go back to this straight edge here. Yeah, so there you go, see the difference. This section here, there's just something about it. It's much more gradual, where if you're gonna baton, the best place to do it is really right in here. And that limits you because you've got a long blade here, but you really want to just use this. You can use the whole thing, it just takes longer. Takes longer, more hits, and that basically means more dulling. You know, the less effective that the blade can just split the wood right away, the more you're driving into the edge and the more you're dulling the blade. Okay, so we're gonna keep working on these pieces here. Now what we're going to do, we've brought this down to something that's usable. There's not a whole lot of knots in here, so let's just go ahead and check the edge, see how it is. Yeah, that's not bad. I don't think it's going to pass my little sharpness test here. Yeah. All right. So it's not shaving sharp, that's for sure. Definitely not. So I got some more hair on this side. I'm running out of hair. Yeah. No, let's check this here. A little bit here because we haven't used it as much. And unfortunately I've got a chip in the blade here already. A chip or a slight roll. I can't tell. It's very small. You're probably not going to see that on the camera, but let's go ahead and see if we can feather stick now. Okay. We got some. Now it's creating a split in the feather stick because there's a split in the wood, so I'll try to find a better place to do this. It's not bad. Yeah, that's getting pretty fine. I would say that's pretty usable. Alright everybody, we're back. Please excuse the view of my crotch. Not the nicest thing, I know, but it's more important that you guys are nice and close for this part here. We've got some curls out of aspen. Now I've got a fire steel that is very, very effective. This has never let me down. This thing is an absolute beast. For perspective here, you can see it's so thick. So if this doesn't work on this, it's certainly not the fire steel. So let's go ahead and throw some sparks on this and see how it does. Alright, that's not a good start. Oh, wow. Okay, so I can tell already that I'm going to become extremely exhausted here if I continue doing that. And then what's happened here is it looks like it's almost roughed the edge a little bit. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on. We're gonna try this part. I don't know. Maybe this has got a use after all. We'll see what it does. That's doing nothing at all. All right. So let's carefully now. We're gonna try the pommel here. I don't think it's gonna do anything, to be honest with you. Oh, I'm wrong. Okay, it's doing something. Now it's putting gouges into my fire steel, which I don't really care for. Wow, it's making this really, really difficult, in all honesty. Yeah, it's gouging the heck out of this. Okay, so all right, now let's try this section right here. We're not giving up. Better, but not the most amazing. Okay, well, we had something there. Okay, well, the downside to using this here, well, the upside is that my hand is really close. I feel like I've got good leverage on it. The blade feels like it's in a safe place. This isn't too bad. The downside is I'm throwing heat directly on my finger. As you can see, my finger is yellowing. So that's going to get a little tiring after a while. Superheating my finger. So let's go back. Let's go back to the spine. We'll play with it in different areas and see what it does. Yeah, it's not doing anything here. This is not an effective spine no. This isn't cutting it, so. Okay, well. Yeah, and there is some nicks in this. That's not looking very good. Okay, we'll be right back with the final conclusions. Okay, everybody, we're back with our final conclusions on the JEO TEC, or JEO TEC, however you want to say it, number 51 tracker style blade. Let's talk about the good things first. It was a decent chopper, as long as you're willing to get to know the blade, figure out its sweet spot, and practice a lot with it. The edge retention is good. I'd say it's not bad for a knife this price range. I mean, you're not spending $300 to $500 on this. You're spending, you know, $100 to $200 for something like this, so it's quite reasonable. The appearance of it, in my personal opinion, is really beautiful. The finish is really, really nice. The handle scales are very well built. They're really handsome. They look really good. So that's the good stuff of the blade. It did a reasonable job chopping. It did a reasonable job batoning. It did a pretty darn good job, surprisingly good job on the fine work, the feather sticks. I haven't done a whole lot of carving with this, but I suspect it's going to be basically what you can expect from a knife this size. It's not going to be a carving knife, of course. So let's talk about the negative things here, sort of starting with the tip. A positive on the tip. I do like the fact that this is so wide here. It did make batoning a little bit nicer. However, going into the negative now, this sawback, this supposed sawback, which doesn't saw anything, really just kind of destroyed my baton, and then it really has no feature, no usability to it. So I'll demonstrate for you here. So let's just take a stick. Now this has got a sharp edge, so it should saw into this. Let's see what it does. So, as you can see, I mean, there's no resistance. It's smooth. You know, if I go on the edge here, you can do a little bit, but that's not really enough. I might as well just go like this, and then do that. You know, I'm gonna have a better notch doing that in 2 seconds than sitting here trying to saw with something that doesn't saw. So. This is just a aesthetic, and frankly I find it annoying. So they should have made it a saw blade, a usable thing. If it's going to hurt your fingers, make it useful for something, or don't make it at all, just make it flat. But I understand they're following the tradition of the tracker knife. Going back to the negative stuff here, the handle is nice in appearance, but it's slick. It's like the smoothest handle I've ever felt. It's just too slick. It's hard to stay in your hand. You're constantly, you know, licking your hand or kind of breathing into your hand to get a good grip on this thing. Not even with my gloves could I get a decent grip on this. So if I use this, I'd probably be wrapping it with hockey tape or something like that, which really, what's the point, right? When you got nice micarta scales like this, you don't want to do that. The really downside for me on this, because this is a survival knife, it should be able to strike a ferro rod with ease. It should have something on it, some area designated for striking it properly. This looks like it's sharp, and you feel it, and you think it's a sharp edge, and then you start striking with it, and all of a sudden you discover, well, this is no good. So I don't know if it's something in the makeup of the steel itself, the stainless steel. I don't think so. This did a reasonable job, but again, why they did this is beyond me. What is the purpose of that? If they would have left this flat with a sharp edge, now you would have had a whole area that you could strike a ferro rod, and it would have made it much more practical, much more useful. So I'm not going to leave this any longer. I will say that, again, the sheath is very well made. The knife is very, very well made. It's obviously a very tough knife, but is it worth the money? I would probably keep shopping around. I would look for something with the same type of steel, same design, but things that have useful features. Yeah, that's my opinion on the JEO TEC, or JEO TEC number 51 tracker style knife. All right, you guys, get out and brave the wild. God bless.